Welcome to the tier list for patch 14.7, where we summarize all the good comps in TFT right now and try to make it in a very simple and understandable way that everyone can kind of use. Right now, there's a little playstyle shift in the meta. Not so much the comps, but more so the playstyle, and that is going to be the introduction of Fast 9. I mean, Fast 9 has always been viable, but this patch in particular, a lot of people are going really hard into it. So let's get into those two comps. That's going to be the BoomBot and Misfortune Flex comp. Lots of different options for carries, but the one important thing that everyone needs to know before they Fast 9, and I wrote it up here on the website, bunnymuffins.lol/meta, is that you pretty much only Fast 9 if you are super far ahead and you're trying to like win the game. If you're just trying to top 4, Fast 9's not going to be the comp for you. Not that it's impossible to, anything's possible in TFT, right? But what you're looking for when you Fast 9 is being super far ahead in HP and in gold. I know that doesn't happen all the time, but for example, if you win streak the entire early game, you can Fast 9. If you took an Econ Augment and did decently, you can Fast 9. If you took a super Econ Augment and it's like Scuttle Puddle or something like that, maybe you took a Prismatic Augment, you can Fast 9. So there are a lot of scenarios where you can do it. Obviously, it's going to depend on your game, but for the most part, it's when you skip level 8, at least for the most part. Sometimes you roll a little bit, and then go straight for the legendaries, which is what both these two comps play, the Boombots and the Misfortune Flex. So Boombot is a little bit different now. Normally you would only play Boombot with the Boombot emblem with 6 Boombot, and that's still very good. I'm not trying to confuse everyone, but the Fast 9 version, it typically only plays 4 Boombot, and we'll cover how to play each and every one of these comps right after we do the tier list. But in the A tier, we have Aphelios, still a solid comp. Exotech got nerfed a bit, but still standing strong. Graves Reroll, same thing. Anima Squad and Street Demon, they're about tied in terms of like the vertical generic trait comps. Shaco Reroll, still good if you get the start for it. Vex got buffed a bunch. It's actually a pretty solid comp now, and it plays the same exact way it has before, except before it got nerfed and now it got buffed back. So Veigar, Techie Reroll, viable if you get some of the Cyber Boss augments, and then Techie Reroll, that's with Seraphine and Dr. Mundo. Some people call it the Gorilla comp, that's like one of the names that's out there. It's rare, you don't play this every game, but if you do get the start for it, definitely more than welcome to go for it. Kogmaw Reroll, still solid after the Vanguard nerfs. Like, by the way, 6 Vanguards got nerfed, so both the Aphelios comp and the Kogmaw comp got hit with that the hardest, but they're both still viable. Cypher got nerfed a little bit too, but still playable. And then like some people with Cypher, they played the Leblanc reroll. Twisted Fate's okay. Vayne got buffed, but not too much. Nitro got buffed a bit too, but I'd say like the Jhin version's pretty nice, but everything else like not that great. And then one other comp I want to mention is Strategist AMP. It used to be in the S tier, but it's in the C tier now. It's pretty bad. So you might be wondering how much worse it is after the nerfs. Essentially, if you do some data checking, right now it's a 4.23, but that's assuming you have Samira. Normally trait bonuses or trait average placements when they have a legendary, they're typically under 4. And this one's above 4, 4.23. For reference, last patch it was 3.94. So it definitely got a lot worse and super risky to go. I wouldn't really do too much of it if I were you. There are just much better things to go for because the nerfs to AMP were quite heavy. But let's get into the comps right now. By the way, if you want to like one trick some comps, it's probably going to be like Exotech and Misfortune Flex. I think those are the most consistent, meaning you could go for it in a lot of your games. The BoomBot comp, it is very good, don't get me wrong, probably the best comp, but you don't go for it all that often. But let's get into the comps right now, the 4 Boombot versus 6 Boombot. So essentially with the 4 Boombot, I talked about this a little bit earlier in the tier list section. You want to go level 9. You want to make sure you have a lot of HP when you go level 9 and at least a little bit of econ to go with it. And then you want to roll down for a bunch of the different legendaries. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on your screen right now. All 5 of them all have potential to do some serious damage. They all work well with the Boombot trait because Viego, he gets Techie with Fiddlesticks. Urgot is of course a Boombot himself. Kabuko gets Bruiser with the Cho'Gath, who's your other main item holder in Boombot. And then Garen and Zac fit in pretty much every single comp. So they're very good flex units for any Fast 9. But I kind of wrote down a little section down here on how to play Fast 9 on the website, so you could definitely check that out in your free time if you want. But essentially what you want to do is you generally hit level 8 around stage 4-1. And during that point, you need to decide whether you want to roll or not. That's going to depend on a lot of different factors. Do you have random 2 stars that are holdable or stable for your board for that stage? If you have a bunch of pairs where maybe you only need to roll like 10 gold to hit them and then you get like a 2-star Cho'Gath or something like that? Do you maybe have one of the 1-star legendaries with items that can kind of stabilize you throughout stage 4, meaning you don't need to roll until you hit level 9? These are the questions you need to ask yourself when you are at the start of stage 4, because it's perfectly normal to just lose a lot of the parts of stage 4. As long as you have around like 30 or more life at the start of stage 5, you're going to be good to go. So that's kind of how you want to approach this, because once you do hit level 9 and you roll down, get some 2-star legendaries, put 3 items on them, like you will be winning a lot of rounds. Like there's no going around that. And sometimes when you have a lot of gold, you can hit level 9 around like stage 4 or 5. Like I've seen that as one of the faster points. You might have like 40 gold to roll down with. But if you roll down a little bit at level 8 on stage 4-1, it's perfectly normal to just go level 9 on stage 5. Another thing you gotta keep in mind is see who is contesting you. So obviously, like not too many people are gonna go for Urgot. Only like the Vex players might go for Urgot. No one really plays him in comps that are not BoomBot, but of course you might be contested, right? Zac and Garen, on the other hand, they're pretty contested by a lot of different players. Viego, if someone's going Golden Ox, they might go for it. He is a pretty good flex unit whenever someone plays like a vertical comp that happens to have techies, because 2 techies is very good with Viego. And then Kabuko, anyone going Bruisers is going to be looking for that. But check to see if people are going to be contesting you, see if they have the ability to go level 9 as well, and use that to kind of make your decision on whether you roll down at level 8 or not, or go straight into level 9. By the way, the 6 BoomBot version is still good. Like if you get BoomBot emblem, definitely play 6 because it's just really, really strong. Like there's no other way to say that. You just put the BoomBot emblem on Vex, put a blue buff on her, put some AP on her, she's going to do fine. Always make sure whenever you're playing BoomBots that you have some form of magic penetration. That can be in the form of either an Ionic Spark or a Void Staff in your backline. I prefer the Ionic Spark, to be honest. And then for Urgot, just any attack damage items, attack speed items, both work fine. Doesn't really matter too much. And of course have some anti-heal, like Morello is good on Vex if she's kind of being your support. Sunfire Cape is good on Zac if you built it early. Sunfire Cape is a very good item to build to win streak, so oftentimes you might have that. And just note that Cho'Gath can hold it, and then eventually when you get Zac, swap it over to him. But if you don't have that, then you definitely need a Morello or red buff from the backline. But if you're a fan of Fast 9ing, if you're a fan of legendaries, or if you're on like Scuttle Puddle or any of the big econ portals, definitely consider this comp because it is super duper 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 good. Just because, like, I mean, look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 legendary units. If you're playing all the legendaries and you could play some semblance of a comp, like in terms of the other synergies, you're going to be doing pretty well no matter what you're playing. Speaking of other comps, let's look at the Dynamo Misfortune comp. This is going to be a flex comp, and I'll show you like a couple of the different versions you can play. So this one is the reroll version with Elise and Braum. There's also the Exotech version, but there's even a third version with the Fast 9 playstyle that is gaining a bunch of popularity right now because, again, you want to just throw in as many legendary units as you can. In this case, you have Renekton, Kabuko, Zac, and Aurora. This way you get Cyberboss and Bastion with the Renekton, Poppy, and Kabuko. You're running Morgana, so you get Divinicorp with the Gragas, and then Gragas and Renekton are also Divinicorp. And you get the Bruiser for Kabuko, and then Zac is just Zac, just a very good 5-cost tank. Zac did get changed a little bit. If you want to see how it affected him, just go to stats, champions on teamfight.lol, type in Zac. You'll see right now he's doing 4.13. What was he last patch? 4.02. He's a little bit worse. They changed the way he kind of scales a little bit, but as you can see, compared to all the other legendaries, he's still very solid, right? Because like the play rate is still very high. It went from 1.68 all the way to 2.16, so that could explain part of his average placement, because the more people that play him, the harder he is to get. But if we look at play rates, he is the second highest played legendary. So like, yeah, he just fits in so many different comps, right? That makes complete sense. Samira, which is part of the AMP build that we talked about, one of the least played because, well, yeah, the comp got nerfed a bunch, you know? But as for like pure tankiness, Zac is definitely up there. Kabuko can be up there if he gets a bunch of Bruiser in. When you play the BoomBots, for example, sometimes you can fit in 4 Bruiser with this comp. Like, it is very possible if you get a Bruiser emblem, because Cho'Gath's a Bruiser, Kabuko's a Bruiser, Gragas is a Bruiser with Divinicorp, so you get that with Divinicorp and Vex, and then you just add in a random one, or you have the emblem, you get to 4 Bruiser pretty easily. So those are some little things you can kind of do with this comp, but as per usual, like if you want the budget version, go for the Syndicate with the Misfortune. If you're like kind of losing in the early game, or like you don't have that much econ, this is going to be a much more economical version. If you can reroll, go for Braum 3 and Elise 3. Of course, you could do that in both versions here. But if you're able to go 9, then definitely try to go 9. Play the legendaries because like 5 is greater than 3, right? So 5 costs are the best units in the game. I don't think I need to explain why to anyone. Also, last but not least, there is the version with Zeri. Zeri's not as good anymore, but she still is playable. So if you get a lot of attack damage items and like some attack speed items, like put the attack speed on Zeri, the attack damage on Misfortune. If you're doing fast 9, attack damage on Misfortune, ability power on Elise or Aurora. And then for Dynamo, like the one with the Syndicates, same thing. And then drop the leftover tank items onto your tanks, either Braum or Leona. But that's pretty much how to do the fast 9 comps right now, both the Misfortune and the Boombots. But let's move on into the A tier comps. Still very solid. Aphelios, Marksman, Vanguard at 6 Vanguard. Very good stuff. Nothing too much has changed here, but you mainly focus on level 8 to roll for everything because you want 4 costs. So you end up being pretty strong in stage 4, especially since a lot of other people are kind of skipping out on stage 4. I think that's why, despite the nerfs, this comp is still very playable, because I don't know if you played TFT before, but anyone who's played a lot can tell you stage 4 is probably one of the most game-defining stages, because if you win all your rounds in stage 4, you're probably automatically top 4, and if you lose all your rounds in stage 4, you're probably bottom 4 unless you get something completely ridiculous later. So because other people are weaker during stage 4, this comp becomes a little bit better because you roll for 4 costs at level 8 in most cases. The Vanguards are pretty cheap, like getting to 6 Vanguard, like come on, you have like 1 cost, 2 cost, 2 cost, 3 cost, 3 costs. Very cheap stuff. Don't really need too many legendaries till like the super late game, where you take out some of the crappy Vanguards. So as long as you hit one of the 2-star carries, have a 2-star tank, doesn't have to be Leona, it could be like Braum, for example. You're probably going to do pretty well during stage 4 if you have like 3 items on them, or at least 2. And you'll pretty much always have that because you wouldn't play this comp unless you had the items in the early game. So one thing you may have noticed already is the Rage Blade. So Rage Blade is used in this comp, and it's also used in the Boombot comp, and it could also be used with the Zeri, either in Misfortune or in Exotech. So it's a pretty decent and flexible item still. Like, a lot of people just build it because it fits in so many different comps. So you could just build a Rage Blade at the start of the game, see what units you hit, and then lean into one of those other comps. Pretty popular way to play. But nothing too crazy going on here. Just level 8, roll for 4 costs, have a nice day. Next comp up we have is Exotech. This is the comp with the Zeri. She also likes the Rage Blade and the Kraken Slayer. Does Aphelios like Kraken Slayer? Yeah, we have Kraken and Hextech Gunblade on him. So they pretty much use the same items, right? The only thing with Exotech, you just have to check what item you get at the start of the game from the Exotech units. Some people ask me how to do that. All you have to do is go into your team planner, put some Exotech unit into the planner, and then hover over it, and then you'll see which items you get. By the way, you can get team planner codes on teamfight.lol by clicking this little button over here, and then paste it into your team planner when you get into the League client. But this comp is really good because it doesn't require any legendaries. Like, I know Aurora's there, but she's not needed. Like, all the Exotech units are all 4 costs and below. If you have an emblem, great. If you don't, perfectly fine too. If you get a lot of 3-cost units, you can play around Mordekaiser and Varus as well. Varus uses a bunch of the different items such as like Hollow Bow. Zeri makes great use of Pulse Stabilizer and Flux Capacitor. Jhin likes Pulse Stabilizer as well. And then Varus also can use the Hyper Fangs. And then the tank items, just put it on Sejuani, doesn't really matter which, and you just get a ton of items. Always remember to put items on your Exotech units as much as you can, rather than like the random units you play, because the more items Exotech units hold, the bigger of a buff they get for health and attack speed, and that's like a very welcome stat for pretty much any unit. Let's go on into the next comp though. That's gonna be the Golden Ox Reroll. This comp got nerfed a little bit. I think Graves lost what, like 3 attack damage? Or is that someone else? No, Graves lost 2% projectile damage, and he lost an interaction with Wit's End and Titanic Hydra. So Graves as a 3-star with the artifact items, I believe last patch he was really good with both of those and Suspicious Trenchcoat, as we went over in the patch preview. So last patch it was 2.95, 3.02 for Trenchcoat, and then Wit's End was 3.19. And then this patch, his Trenchcoat is 3.12, and then Wit's End fell to 4.22, and Titanic Hydra fell to 4.29. So it's still playable, obviously. Like, it's not the end of the world if you get it, but it's definitely much worse than it was before. The only items that improve his average placement right now is going to be Gold Collector, Cutlass, Mittens, Death's Defiance, and Suspicious Trenchcoat. But obviously with Graves, you just take artifact items if you can get them, and then just put them on it. Like, you can't always get what you want, right? It's not that Titanic Hydra is bad, it's just not as good as it was before because of the interaction. So that's why the comp got a little bit worse, but it's still very playable, still very good. Pretty much all you do is hit a Graves too early, use it to snowball and get a ton of gold drops from the Golden Ox trait when you execute stuff with Graves, and then you use that to either roll or level to meet the gold thresholds for the Golden Ox trait, and then you go into your late game with either Jarvan 3-star or Aphelios. It's a pretty one-dimensional comp. You pretty much only play it if you like hard force it from the beginning, in my opinion, because again, you need a ton of gold because Graves needs to farm so that you could get your Golden Ox payoffs. So it'll be pretty obvious when and when not to go for this comp because of that reason. Next build up we have is Anima Squad. Just a standard vertical comp, like nothing too crazy going on. It's a very easy comp to play. Both Anima Squad and Street Demons, very easy to play because you just put all the traits in your team planner, buy those units, and you don't really deviate too much from it. If you get an emblem, great. If you don't have it, that's okay too. As long as you have a good reason to go for the comp, you sometimes don't need the emblem. So what are these good reasons I speak of? One of them is going to be if you have one of the augments that are specific to the trait, then obviously you can hard force that comp, right? Another would be if you get a lot of the natural units early on in the game. So for Anima Squad, if you get like Silas 2-star, Seraphine 2-star, things like that with like maybe a 1-star Alawi or a 1-star Vayne, then yeah, you could go for the comp, especially if you have an item that one of them can hold. If you flex into this comp later, like maybe you're playing just some random Vanguards and some random Marksman or something, and then in stage 3 you hit an early Leona or an early Xayah. Like sometimes we hit it as early as stage 2 because you can see forecast starting at level 5. It's rare, but sometimes it happens, right? Those are your signs for saying, maybe I can consider going Anima Squad. For Street Demon, it's going to be the same thing with Nico and Brand. Like if they show up in your shop for some reason later on in the game, great. That's going to be one of the signs to maybe try to go for this, especially if you have items for it. If you built a Spear of Shojin early, like yeah, definitely consider it. As for one cost at the start of the game, on stage 2 for Street Demons, it's Mundo and Zyra. Those are going to be the two important characters. So if you meet those requirements, both of these comps can be very viable. For the items, Xayah is going to be your main focus, just pure attack damage items on her. Some people like Spear of Shojin on her, but I don't think it works that well. Like it's okay, it's not bad, but I think going the pure attack damage version is going to be a little bit better, not by too much. So if you have Shojin, just build it, and worst case scenario, if you get too many items for Xayah and one of them's a Spear of Shojin, you could always move it onto Aurora later on. She uses it really, really well. And then along with that, get a Morellonomicon, third item, doesn't matter. For your tanks, just put Leona as your main tank, make her super good. And if you ever get like health augments, this comp becomes a lot better because you want your units to survive a really long time. Because Anima Squad gives resistances, so because the Anima Squad trait gives resistances and it also gives damage amplification, so if you just have a lot of health, it just complements the resistances pretty well. So if you have stuff like the cybernetic augment that gives health, if you have bulky buddies, any augment that mentions health is going to be good on this team. Next up we have is Street Demon. So we talked about this a little bit already, but this one's focused on Brand. So just look at the comp we saw here with Anima Squad, just replace Xayah with Brand and Leona with Nico, and the idea pretty much works the same. Aurora with Samira, except the items are different, of course, and the team comp is different, or the trait is different, but you just go straight into the vertical trait. This one goes for 7 Street Demon and then 4 Strategist. 4 Strategist works out pretty well because both Echo and Nico are both Street Demon and Strategist. They're like twin trait buddies or whatever you want to call them. So it's pretty easy to slot in 2 extra Strategists, Ziggs and Yuumi in this case, to complement the team. Ziggs is a good utility item holder. I saw a tweet of someone's like saying Ziggs could be a primary carry, but I don't think that actually panned out. You can see here when we sort forecast by average items, Ziggs is like, yeah, the least itemized forecast. Yeah, you don't want to do that. It's not that it's a bad thing to have items on him. He just can't carry as hard as Brand, you know? Great support though, great support. And the Strategist buff is obviously really good too. But yeah, tank items on Nico, pretty much anything can do on her. For tank items, you mainly just use leftovers, and then Samira, just like the pure attack damage items, gonna be perfectly fine there. Next build up we have is Shaco Reroll. Shaco Reroll is just a 1-cost reroll comp. Very easy to play, it's just situational. Only play this if you have Shaco with an Infinity Edge early. I think I've said this every single video so far, so I won't drag this on too long because we are getting towards the end of the set. So some of the comps change, some of the comps don't, and Shaco Reroll is kind of one of the ones that have not really changed too much. You just need to stack him early, play a bunch of Slayers, play 3 Syndicate, put an Edge of Night on him or artifact items or radiant items, and yeah, he should carry most of the time. Next build up we have is Exotech Vex. This comp has made a comeback, and it's just because of the buffs. Vex got like slight ability damage ratio buffs on her ability. It wasn't too much, but every little bit counts, right? Especially when she overheals from it a little bit to convert it to damage, especially when she critically strikes, because again, that's like a multiplier. So each little like ability buff on Vex, it counts like a little bit more than some other characters. But that little push was enough to put her into like the A tier. Before it was like low A, high B tier. Now it's like comfortably in A tier. And overall, yeah, just a solid unit. You could pair it up with Varus. Varus 2-star or 3-star. Obviously, like if you have a lesser duplicator, go for the 3-star. If not, don't sweat too much if Varus is only 2-star. He still works out pretty nicely because he gets to use one of the Exotech items in most cases, like Hyperfangs or Hollowbow. And then he also gets to hold all the utility items such as Void Staff and Red Buff. By the way, how did people feel about the Void Staff versus Static Shiv change that they made a while back? I kind of missed Static Shiv, but like I knew it had to be done, right? Static Shiv was either like a ridiculous item or it was just like, oh, fine, I'll build it just because I need magic penetration. But now with Void Staff, it's just like, all right, it's purely magic penetration, no weird secondary effect. For the front line, Sejuani with Protector's Vow going to make perfect sense. Both Sejuani and Zac, I don't know if you've noticed, they both really love Protector's Vow because they like casting early, because that means they use their ability earlier, and when they use their ability earlier, they get their crowd control effect a little bit earlier, which affects the fight a lot more. Let's compare that to a champion, let's say like Gragas, for example. Like Gragas doesn't really stun people, right? He just damages people, so putting mana on him to cast a little bit earlier is not going to make that much of a difference, you know? Mordekaiser, he does have a stun. It is single target, so it's nice, but it's not like super duper important. But there's some tanks out there, like Nico, for example, where like, yeah, she shields, and like that's great and all, but it's not a stun. It's not the same thing. I think Leona only stuns one person. Yeah, you stun the center enemy, and it's not as impactful as stunning in a large radius such as Sejuani or stunning a bunch of people like Zac. So that's why Protector's Vow works better on those champions and not as well as some of the others, because like some want pure tank items just to live longer because their ability makes them a much more durable tank. So two different ways to kind of look at it. But you could also do like a fast 9-ish version with the Exotech Vex here too, where you have Viego, Renekton, and Aurora. You could also fit in, again, Zac and Garen, because they fit in pretty much every single comp. You pretty much just need some generic frontline and some executioners. That's really all there is to it. Urgot can also fit here too, because he's also an executioner. For example, one way to kind of flip this comp a bit is maybe playing Urgot instead of Varus, Zac instead of Sejuani, and then Garen over literally anyone. Next build up we have is going to be the Veigar Reroll. Not too many updates here from the other weeks. Like, you pretty much play this if you get a Cyber Boss augment and if you get a lot of Veigars early. Like, if you don't have either of those, like, yeah, it's like you'll never play this comp. But if you do get it, you hit Kabuko, biggest power spike in the world, and then you'll do pretty decently. Like, I don't know what the biggest stat difference is or whatever it's called, but I'm pretty sure like the trait difference between 3 Cyber Boss and 4 Cyber Boss is like the biggest thing ever. It goes from, yeah, like 5.19 to 3.6. I don't think any one step, like moving up one step, is as big as that, other than like the 10 traits. Those don't count. But like even Syndicate, which goes from like 5 to 7, isn't that big of a jump, I don't think. Was this like 1 point something? The one with Cyber Boss is literally like a almost 2-point jump. It's like 1.5, right? Absolutely nuts stuff. I can't do math. Someone can do the math. Let me know down in the comments what the exact numbers are. Also, if someone wants to prove me wrong and be like, hey, nope, this other trait has a bigger drop off or bigger difference, head on over to teamfight.lol, type in random trait names, and let me know down in the comments or in the Discord. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be the 3 to 4 Cyber Boss, because like you get such a big, like you go from having one Cyber Boss to having every Cyber Boss be a Cyber Boss. And you also get Kabuko, who's a legendary. Like, it's just so much power. It's actually insane. But blue buff and then 2 AP items on Veigar. Like, you don't have to build Hextech Gunblade. I prefer it, but you don't have to. And make sure you have magic penetration with a Ionic Spark. Next comp up we have is Techie Reroll. One of the more niche comps that is like decently popular, but you don't play this all the time. You just go for Seraphine 3-star, Mundo as your main tank, reroll a bunch of stuff, and like late game, you finish it off with some brand. Go level 9, go for 6 Techie, get a Viego if you can. And it just works out really well because you could also fit in 4 Bruiser. Kabuko conveniently is both a cyber boss that complements Veigar with the techies, but it's pretty much like Mundo and Seraphine being the main stars of the show, and then someone holding a Morellonomicon. One mistake I see people making a lot with this comp is itemizing Zyra a lot. It's not that she's bad with items, because obviously, like, if you 3-star her, any 3-star works well with items, right? But you'd rather have like a brand 2-star with it, and or have some more tank items, or have some utility items. Like Zyra is not going to be able to like carry you as hard as Seraphine, so just be careful on that with the items. Like, yeah, she can use them, she can hold them, and if she's 3-star, she's going to be decent with them, but she's not going to make or break your team. So don't go out of your way to get items for Zyra. If you have them, great, use them, but don't go out of your way to get them for her. That's my like little tip for this comp here. Next build up we have is Vanguard Kog'Maw. It did get nerfed, but still viable. Just 1 cost reroll, Rageblade and Kraken's Fury, Vi as the main tank, or you could do one of the 2-stars, either Ross or Skarner. People normally choose Skarner. And I would normally just play this if you get a lot of natural Kog'Maws. That way you do not have to get a reroll augment. Or if you get Starry Night or a reroll augment and then you get perfect items, that's another time to play this. So you need one of the two. Either a lot of Kog'Maws, find the items later, or perfect augments to kind of get the Kog'Maw or help you get the Kog'Maw, and then you already have the items to kind of fit on him once you do hit him. But a couple of different options here. Nothing too crazy going on there. It's just a 1-cost reroll comp. Cypher got nerfed a bit, so I moved it down to the bottom of the A tier, but it's still very viable with the lose streak start. They just nerfed it because pro players use Cypher too well, but even if you're not a pro player, you still can use it to pretty decent effect, because trading a little bit of health for a bunch of loot is generally a good option, you know, but of course, you don't always get a huge cash out. But summing up at the top again, the rest of the comps, they are still playable. There are still spots for them, but you just want to focus on the S and A tiers. If I had to guess how many people per game play each and every comp, like for the S tier comps, you'll probably have like 3 people playing these combined. So it's like maybe you'll have like 2 Boombots, 1 Misfortune player, or 1 Boombot and 2 Misfortune players one game. For the A tiers, like maybe one of each of these. Not every single one, but like there will be one person who goes one of these. Like I doubt there will be 2 people going for these comps. Maybe these will take up like the next 4 comps. So like 3 S tier comps, 4 A tier comps, and then 1 B or C tier comp. Like that's probably what's going to be the distribution, which is pretty standard, I would say. But a couple of ways to approach this patch. We talked about the Rageblade before. It fits in like the Boombots, it fits in Exotech, it fits in Aphelios. Another thing you could do is Spear of Shojin. I think those are always like the 2 most stereotypical like starting items. It's either you build an Infinity Edge, you build a Rageblade, or you build a Spear of Shojin. Infinity Edge, you just hard force attack damage. Shojin, you hard force either casters, AP, or AD. Like in this set, you could do both because Misfortune uses it and she's an attack damage person. Xayah can use it, even though I don't think it's her best item. But then, of course, like a lot of AP users can use it. And lastly, we have Rageblade, and like a bunch of random units just love using Rageblade all the time. So I'd say those 3 items are always going to be like one of the 3 best items in the early game that you just slam, and then you fit into other comps as you move on. And then based on that, you just kind of pick and choose whatever comp you get. If you get Shojin, you want to go like Street Demon, maybe Anima Squad, maybe the Xayah comp, maybe the Misfortune comp. The Misfortune doesn't really want it that much if you go hard into Dynamo, so maybe you could do the ones with like 2 Dynamo. Infinity Edge works good on Graves. You could use them as an item holder, or if you get a lot more Graves, just go hard into it and do the reroll. Xayah also uses Infinity Edge, so you could do Anima Squad or Aphelios. So like a lot of different options with each of these items there. Like of course you could do some of the other comps like lower down in the tier list as well with those items. One special shout out I would say is to Vayne Reroll. Vayne did get buffed a little bit, but it's not back to where she was like a couple of patches ago where everyone was playing her. She's still like decent or playable. I shouldn't say decent. She's still playable, but you need like a really special spot for her, you know? Because while she did get buffed, it isn't enough to make her just like completely OP or anything like that. But to get a full write-up of each and every one of these comps, head on over to the website bunnymuffins.lol. But that's going to be it from me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time.